and welcome to Shattered Ice Gaming. And today we are going to be playing Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. And you may be wondering why I am playing a game that is so old and that I speak about so little on the channel. Well, I do like this game, although I have played it to death in the past. And recently, Fantasy Flight Games released a new digital expansion for this game. A new scenario, as it were, a new story. So I thought, what better way to experience that story than to share it with you guys? So that's what we're going to be playing today. If you're not aware of how to play Mansions of Madness or what it is, it's basically a horror game set in the Arkham universe made by Fantasy Flight Games, which is very heavily inspired by the works of H.P. Lovecraft. And the game is a very simple dungeon crawler investigation type game where you will be moving around a map, sometimes in a mansion, sometimes not, but always with madness, and you will be searching all the rooms and the streets and everything like that by interacting with these question mark tokens and building the map as you go by interacting with these lantern tokens. And along the way you will collect these unique items, which are usually some form of evidence or something specific to the story that have this kind of a fancy key lock back on them. And you'll also be collecting regular items that have this kind of leather pouch back. Of course, monsters will pop up from time to time and you have to fight them, and all the rest of it. But you will likely see this is quite a simple game, so you will probably learn as we play. Now, it is driven by an app, so off screen I will be having my laptop running the app, which is going to tell us how to build the map, where monsters go, where things move, and there will be lots of reading in this and lots of story. So hopefully it's going to be a fun and exciting adventure into the dark, mythical world of the Arkham universe. So the first thing we do is select the scenario we want to play, which is Turn of a Page. And this is the new scenario by Fantasy Flight Games. Then we pick our investigators, and I'm going to play as two investigators. First, we'll be playing as Harvey Walters, who is a professor. He has 5 health and 9 sanity, so he dies easy, but it's hard for him to go crazy. He has a strength of 3, an agility of 2, an observation of 4, a lore of 4, an influence of 4, and a will of 4. And this represents how many dice you will roll when the game instructs you to take a test of any kind. And he has a special ability where, for an action, another investigator within range gains 1 clue, and he can use that once per round. And these are our clues, which are very handy, and you will see what they do shortly. Then next we will be taking Tommy Muldoon, the rookie cop. So he has a health of 7 and a sanity of 7, so he's about average. Strength of 4, agility of 4, observation of 4, lore of 2, influence 4, and a will of 3. And he begins the game with the Becky unique item. And what is the Becky unique item? It is his trusty rifle, which means right from the get-go we've got a way to defend ourselves. And now that we have our 2 characters selected, we gain our starting items, because every game of Mansions of Madness you will be provided some equipment at the start of the game. So for this game we receive candles. So for this game we receive some candles, which we can discard to convert all magnifying glass symbols to successes while casting a spell. So those are going to go to Harvey Walters, because he is going to be our spellcaster. Then we get a ritual dagger. It's a bladed weapon, does 1 damage, roll 1 additional die while casting a spell. Well, that's also going to go to Harvey Walters, because he is our spellcaster. And then we get a Tommy gun. So, unfortunately, we already have a firearm for Tommy Muldoon, and Harvey Walters isn't going to be much good with this. So this is going to be a backup firearm for Tommy Muldoon. Once per round, you may reroll all of your dice while attacking with this card, so it's pretty handy. In fact, it's better than Becky. We can reroll all dice instead of just 1. So we'll keep Becky just in case we lose the Tommy gun, but that's definitely what we'll be starting with. Then we also get a Feed the Mind spell. You or another investigator within range become focused, then flip this card. Okay, well that's going to Harvey Walters. A Flesh Ward spell. You're another investigator within range, discard 1 damage, then flip this card. Okay, so that's also going to Harvey Walters. And finally, we get a Wither spell, which is a range spell that will do 2 damage. And that is also going to go to Harvey Walters. So very much in favour of the older professor here. But I don't think Tommy needs much other than his trusty Tommy gun. And then each investigator begins with 2 clues. So we take 2 of these 2 clue tokens for each character, put them on their cards. And that is our character set up. And then finally we have our miniatures. Here we have Tommy Muldoon and Professor Walters. And you can probably tell that I painted these a long time ago, as they are not very good. Okay, and now we continue to our setup. So the first thing we get is the introduction to our story. You jerk awake, shaking from the cloudy visions of doom rising, and you are once again unable to remember exactly what the recurring nightmare foretells. As your heartbeat slows, you try to convince yourself that it will be a normal day in Arkham. The appointment you must keep today is Tillingast's Esoterica and Exotics, a local shop that has recently acquired artifacts that have enormous magical powers. If you can secure 1 or more of those artifacts, it may stave off the doom you feel approaching. However, the shop and its proprietor may not be as benign as they seem. Some claim that the shop itself moves. Those that have been there disagree about its location, and rarely can they locate the shop a second time. There is even a rumour that crossing Tillingast's threshold could transport you to other places, but it could be manufactured mystique by a canny businessman. Finding this strange shop will be your first step to confronting your nights of fear head-on. But secretly, you are glad that you will be meeting a former employee of Tillingast, Andy Van Notwick, before venturing into the unknown. The short trip to downtown Arkham has been eerily quiet. The handful of people you have seen have glassy eyes and mumble nonsense as you pass by. Every instinct you have is screaming that today is the day your nightmares have warned you of, and you are increasingly eager to find Andy Van Notwick and accompany him to Tillingast's Esoterica and Exotics. Okay, then the game tells us to place street corner tile 1 as indicated. Though the usual stalls are set up in the flea market near Independence Square, it is entirely deserted. No customers, no sellers. A slight fog muffles your footsteps on the cobblestones, and you strain to peer through it for any sign of life. And we place our investigators in this space here. The glow of streetlights struggles to hold back the gloom that has settled over Arkham. No light pierces the heavy fog in the centre of the square. On the corner is the front door to a shop. This is the last reported location of Tillingast's shop, but you hesitate. Visitors have claimed that the shop's location moves, so this may not actually be the shop you seek. Okay, so this is where we begin, and each character receives 2 actions. Now, the difference between these lantern tokens and this eye token is that as long as we are on this tile, we can reveal this token without spending an action. But to reveal one of the locations these lantern tokens lead to, we must spend an action. So we're going to begin with Tommy Muldoon, and the first thing he's going to do is reveal this token because it doesn't cost him any actions. The glow of the streetlights struggles to hold back the gloom that has settled over Arkham. The street continues past the market square into downtown, though you cannot see much farther due to the unseasonable fog. Finally, you see a figure emerge from the mist. Though the woman seems a bit unsteady on her feet, you are glad the area isn't completely deserted. Another door has a jaunty cat placard hung over its door. Could this be the shop you are searching for? A stack of building materials is gathering fog outside of this shop. A narrow street borders the market square. Okay, so Tommy Muldoon still has 2 actions remaining. Now, 1 action allows you to move up to 2 spaces, so we're going to maximise the use of our movement here and go 1, 2 to here. And then with his second action, he's going to interact with this lantern token. With your hand still on the doorknob, a misshapen terror bursts from within and shoves past you into the street, and then a maniac emerges in the street As the creature passes, you instinctively strike out to defend yourself. Test strength. So Tommy Muldoon has a strength of 4, so we roll 4 dice for him. And each of these is a success. Each blank is a failure. And using a clue, we can convert these to a success. So we're going to convert one of those to a success, meaning we get 2 successes. And the monster suffers damage equal to your test result. So this maniac takes 2 damage. And that is the end of Tommy Muldoon's turn. Okay, so now we have this maniac from inside this shop to deal with. So Harvey Walters is going to come and join us and help with that. So Harvey Walters will move 2. And then seeing this maniac, he's going to stare at it in horror and say, "By God, Tommy, what's that thing?" And he is going to use his Wither spell. So Wither is a ranged attack spell, and it will deal 2 damage if we are successful. So the way a spell works is we flip this over, and we read what it says on the back. You shout as the spell leaves your body, barely managing to direct its wild power at another foe. Another monster within range suffers 2 damage. If no other monsters are within range, another investigator within range suffers 1 face-down damage. Then discard this card and gain another Wither spell. Okay, so we didn't even have to roll dice for that, but it is going to damage Tommy Muldoon. So first we'll apply damage to the maniac, and he only has 4 health. So we defeat him as he is withered into a mummified corpse by that spell. Then Harvey Walters draws another Wither spell from the deck. And then finally, Tommy Muldoon takes 1 face-down damage. So the way damage works in this game is these cards themselves are the damage. So when Tommy Muldoon receives 7 of these cards, whether they're face up or face down, he will become wounded. And should that happen, I will explain how that works. The thing to know is face down damage is good, face up damage is bad. So he's got 1 face down damage on him. Okay, and that is both of our investigators activated. So we go on to the mythos phase. The nightmares are visiting you during the day, and it is difficult to resist the sudden lethargy you feel. Harvey Walters tests mind. So Harvey Walters has to test his will, and he has a will of 4, which means he rolls 4 dice, and the test difficulty is 1. So he only needs 1 success, and he gets 1, so he is okay. And then we go back to the investigator phase. Okay, so Tommy Muldoon is going to go and question this woman here. So he's going to move 1 space, and then he's going to interact with this person token. A young woman in a worn hat and coat sways on her feet, eyes wide and unblinking. So Tommy Muldoon can ask her, "Miss, are you all right?" Or, "We can open our senses." That's interesting. Let's try opening our senses. Something strange is going on. You gaze into the woman's wide eyes and see a roiling green ocean storming within. And now we have to test law. And that was a mistake. We should have gone with talking to her, because our law is only 2. So we roll 2 dice, and we get 2 magnifying glasses. So we can use 1 clue to turn one of those into a success, and hopefully that will be a pass, because some tests in this game, you enter the amount of successes you make. It doesn't actually give you a value you need to pass, so you don't know whether you will pass or fail until you've entered the number of successes. So let's find out. You are unsure how long you stare into the chaos behind the woman's eyes, but you hear a voice murmur, "Where the stars were right, they could plunge from world to world through the sky." You may suffer 1 horror to gain 2 clues. No, we're not going to do that. We're not suffering horror if we don't have to. Another person afflicted with nightmares like you have had is a bad sign, but now that you know something bigger is going on, you are more prepared to fight. and helping everyone you can find is the first step to controlling the doom that approaches Arkham. Each investigator may flip one horror face down. Okay, well we don't have any horror, so that's fine. Okay, and Tommy Muldoon has 1 movement point left. Because each move action gives you 2 movement points, and you can split that up between other actions. So he moved 1 space to here, used an action to talk to her, and then he's going to use his last movement point to move to here. And then Harvey Walters is going to spend 1 action point to move to here, and he's going to look down this street. A narrow street borders the market square here. Set a bit off the market square, a large permanent storefront looms over the rest of its neighbours. You cannot see any light on behind the mirrored glass door, but this could be Tillingast's shop. The thick fog gathered in the market square prevents you from seeing what might be lurking in its centre. 1 more street borders the market square. Okay, and Harvey Walters will use his 2nd movement point to move to here. And then he's going to take a look in this shop. The glass storefront is dark, but it could be Tillingast's shop. You push the heavy door open without too much trouble, but the darkness inside makes you pause. Anything could be waiting in there for you. Okay, so we need to test our will, and we need 2 successes to pass. So we roll 4 dice. And we get 1 success and a clue icon. So we'll spend 1 clue to succeed, turning that into a success. Striding forward with more confidence than you immediately feel, you find the chain for the overhead electric bulbs that buzz to life. You may flip 2 horror face down. From the displays of hats and other fashionables, this shop must be a haberdashery instead of Tillingast's esoterica. Not 1 soul is inside the shop, though the door was unlocked. You could search for evidence of where everyone went, or simply gather supplies for the day ahead. A heavy cloth curtain hangs in the back of the shop, perhaps concealing a closet or small office. You may move 1 space into the explored area. So Harvey is going to go in here. And then that is the end of the turn, so we go on to the mythos phase. A single beam of light breaks through the clouds, but is quickly choked out. Okay, and it goes back to the investigators. So we're going to start with Tommy Muldoon again, and he's going to have a look at this. A stack of building materials has been left outside of this shop. You quickly rifle through the building materials for anything you could use in your investigation. Okay, so Tommy finds the shovel, common item. And now he's going to move 2 spaces to there. And the game tells us that we can reveal this site token if we are on this tile. So Tommy is going to reveal that token. The fog clings to the wet cobblestones of the narrow street. A young man in a flat cap nervously paces back and forth in the fog. This is Andy Van Notwick, the former employee of Tillingast that you were meeting. No light pierces the heavy fog in the centre of the square. Okay, and that's Tommy Muldoon's turn completed. So Harvey Walters is going to search this haberdashery. So we're going to search this token. Handsome hats are displayed everywhere you look. You try on several hats, smiling at your frivolity in the polished silver mirror behind the counter. With the right look, you could be ready to face anything. Become focused, then discard this search token. So Harvey becomes focused, which means he gets one of these focused cards, and he can discard this card to convert all magnifying glasses to successes when resolving a test. So it's kind of like a super clue. Then he has 1 action left, and we are going to move to here, because I think it might be worth searching this shop. Okay, and that is the end of the turn. Tommy Muldoon squints against even the weakest light, and the pain in his head throbs in time with his heartbeat. Okay, so we have to do a strength test, and we need 1 success to pass. Oh dear. And he fails. He clutches his head and vomits violently onto the ground. Tommy Muldoon suffers 1 face down damage and drops 2 random items. Okay, so the first thing we do is suffer 1 face down damage, which puts us on 2, and then we have to drop 2 random items. So we take his items, we'll give them a shuffle. Unfortunately, we can tell which is which by the back, so... yeah, I'm just kind of going to have to look away while I do this. So he drops these two. So he drops the shovel and Becky. Which means these two items are placed in his space. And then we can spend an action to pick them up. And then it's back to the investigator phase. Okay, so Tommy doesn't have any time to waste. We need to go and see Andy Van Notwick. So he's going to use a movement to move 2 spaces. And then he's going to use his second action to move again to this space. And Harvey is going to search this token here. You wonder why no one is here to oversee the shop and its wares. Okay, so we have a choice: search for people or gather supplies. Well, based on the last person we met was a maniac, we're going to try and gather supplies. With no one around to object and no one to count the bills you leave on the counter, you take whatever you need. And so Harvey Walters gains the 45 automatics. Okay, now we could look through this this back room here, but yeah, go on. We'll take a look through here, see what's in here. A heavy cloth curtain hangs in the back of the shop, perhaps concealing a closet or small office. You pull back the curtain, and a portly man in a luxurious waistcoat tumbles to the floor, snoring slightly. When you shake his shoulder to try and wake him, your vision is filled with the sea rising above Arkham, and your ears fill with a somnolent chanting. Suffer 2 horror. Okay, so this tells us we suffer 2 horror, but our will negates, which means we roll 4 dice for our will, and any successes we roll reduce that horror by 1 for each success. So Harvey has rolled 1 success and 2 magnifying glasses, so he's going to spend a clue to turn that into a success, and then he doesn't suffer any horror. Okay, and that is the end of another turn. A sudden vision of monsters rising from the sea to shatter Arkham streets fills your mind. Each investigator in an outdoor space suffers 2 face-down horror, will negates. Okay, so Harvey Walters luckily is inside. Tommy Muldoon is not quite so lucky, so he rolls his will of 3, and each success negates 1 of the horror that he will take. So he rolls 3 successes there, which means he takes no horror. And then we are back to the investigator phase. So Harvey Walters is going to start, and he's going to move 2 spaces to here, and he's going to pick up Tommy's items. And we'll try and give those back to him later. Okay, now Tommy Muldoon is going to speak with Andy Van Notwick. Your contact, Andy Van Notwick, is pacing back and forth in the fog. So we have the choice to ignore him or greet him, so we'll greet him. Oh, thank goodness you came quickly. Things are progressing much faster than I hoped they would, and we must hurry to meet with Tillinghast in his shop. You begin to tell Andy that you cannot find the shop anywhere, but one sweep of his arm reveals a door that you somehow missed before. Its stained glass door shows an eye on a pyramid. Okay, so the shop is down here, which means the fastest way to find it is perhaps to go through the market square, which the game does seem to have been hinting that's quite dangerous, but we're going to have to risk it. So we're going to interact with this lantern token. The thick fog gathered in the market square prevents you from seeing what might be lurking in its centre. Your skin is chilled with the touch of the fog, as thick as cotton batting. The market square seems eerily deserted. You could check the stalls for people, or perhaps things no one will miss. Okay, so we've both used 2 actions, so that is the end of the turn. The shriek of another dreamer echoes off the surrounding walls. Each investigator in an outdoor space becomes dazed, then tests strength 2. If you fail, suffer 1 horror. Okay, so both Harvey and Tommy are in outdoor spaces, which means they both gain a dazed card, which tells us we cannot spend clues to convert dice results or perform additional puzzle steps, but that will go away at the end of the turn, so it's not too bad. And then we each have to test strength. So we'll start with Tommy Muldoon, who has a strength of 4. And we need 2 successes. Okay, so Tommy gets 2 successes, so he's fine. Then Harvey Walters has a strength of 3. He gets 1 success. We could use the focus card because it's not a clue, so the dazed wouldn't affect that, but it's a bit of a waste. So we're just going to suffer the 1 horror on Harvey Walters. So he gains a horror card, and it tells us he suffers a horror. He doesn't say it's face down, and if it doesn't tell us it's face down, it means it's face up, which means we have a look at what this card says. Your heart races, and your breath catches in your throat. Resolve immediately. No additional effects. Flip this card face down. So it just becomes a face down horror. And then we go back to the investigator phase. Tommy Muldoon is simply going to move 1, 2, and then he's going to move another space to here. Now, this darkness means that we can't convert clues, but we can't do that anyway because we're both dazed. So there's not much of an issue in that area. Okay, and then Harvey Walters is going to move 1 space into here, and then he's going to have a look at this. An empty market is a golden opportunity to filch something useful from the stalls. You feel slightly guilty stealing with brazen impunity, but you surely can use these supplies better than anyone else around. You may suffer 1 face-down horror to gain the bandage as common item. Okay, I think that's maybe worth the trade-off, so Harvey will take another face-down horror, so he gets these bandages, which will actually be handy for helping Tommy get rid of that damage. He's turned out to be quite the little thief, Harvey. He's just absolutely loaded with equipment. And then he would have 1 movement point left, so he's going to move to here. And that is once again the end of the turn. Harvey Walters has lost his way. Suddenly, desperate for a familiar landmark or clue to his location, Harvey Walters suffers 2 face-down horror. Observation negates. Okay, so first thing to remember is we discard these at the end of our turns, so he doesn't have to worry about those. And now he rolls observation. And his observation is 4. And he gets 2 successes, so he negates both of the horror he would take. But then he has to flip 2 horror face up. So he flips both of his horror cards face up. And they are both minus shock, so lucky for us, they both get flipped face back down. Okay, and then it's back to the investigator's turn. So we're going to use Harvey first, and he's going to move 1 space to here, and he's going to see what he can steal from this market stall. It bothers you that the market square is so deserted. Could there be people who need your help, perhaps locked in nightmares as you were, just out of sight? You quickly locate a broad-shouldered, tall worker swaying rhythmically with their blank gaze trained up at an unremarkable canvas awning. Okay, so we need to test our influence. And that is this little handshake symbol. So Harvey Walters has 4 influence, and we don't know how many successes we need. It just tells us to input the number of successes. So we get 2. You snap your fingers near the worker's ear, and in front of their vacant eyes, when nothing seems to reach them, you consider taking more direct measures. Do you wish to force the dreamer awake, or keep trying to wake them gently? We're going to try and wake them gently. We're not going to try and force them awake. If I know anything about Lovecraftian horror, forcing somebody who's asleep to wake up is not a good idea. The stall worker is still locked in a terrible slumber. Okay, so it would cost us another action to try and wake them gently. So we're gonna wait till next turn to do that. And Tommy Muldoon is going to take his turn, and he's going to take a look at this lantern token. The door leads into Tillinghast's Esoterica and Exotics, the shop you have been searching for. Immediately behind the shop door rises a steep staircase. The building didn't appear to have a second floor from outside. At the top of the staircase, a whip-thin woman leans against the wall, smoking a cigarette. This is Ruby Standish. It is difficult to see past the top landing of the stairs. The world seems to lurch around you like a car engine turning over, and you find yourself in the foyer. Each investigator moves 1 space into the explored area, then remove tiles from the board as indicated, including all figures and tokens. and cards on them and set them aside. Some tiles and tokens may be used again later. Okay, so it teleports us into here. It forces us to move. And it says to remove all these tiles and tokens and leave them to one side. So I think that's a good place to leave this on a nice cliffhanger there. So thank you all very much for watching, and we will be back with the next part of this horrifying adventure. And as usual, please like, share, subscribe, comment, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.